Hi, welcome back to the podcast. I am your host, Naomi, and this is Mosaic in Progress. As always, check the show notes for content and trigger warnings. This episode is dedicated to my adopted little sister, Aubrey. You are one of the most important people in my heart, and we don't talk as much as we used to because adulting and life has gotten in our way, but I was trying to find anything to bring me up to be able to do this episode, and you were the person who I thought of because my entire reason for doing this is to help you and people like us, so that maybe they have a chance at something better than what we went through. And I made a commitment to myself and to so many people to do this podcast. And the only thing that could bring me up from where I am enough to do it was remembering love and the people around me. So I hope this episode will be useful to you and to everyone who is listening to it. I did not post an episode last week. I usually record my episodes the day of, and for a little while I had gotten ahead and I had done several recordings in advance and had them scheduled to be posted, and I used up all of my backlog of episodes. They say when it rains it pours, and my life has been a fucking tsunami for the past 6 weeks to 2 months, and I have lost almost every spoon that I have at my disposal to be able to do anything more than just survive. And if you're listening to this and you don't know me, you probably don't care, and that's fine. But by way of explanation for this episode, that's what's kind of been going on in the background. Just a dumpster fire, and I'm going to talk about that today, not in detail, not everything that's been going on, but the things that have come up for me during this time that I think will be useful to anyone else who is in a similar situation, and things that I have realized and discovered about myself and the situations. Emotional abuse is abuse. And so today we're going to talk a lot about emotional abuse, and we're going to talk a lot about boundaries and what boundaries are and why you need them, and the aftermath or the healing, the recovery, the breaking away that happens when you have an emotional abuser in your life. And I hope that this will be helpful for everyone listening, and I hope that it's something I can turn into something good for someone. So let's just dive right into the trauma. I found out a few weeks ago that my mother has cancer. And over the course of the weeks preceding that, I found out that it was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and that it is stage 3. And they are planning 6 months of chemo for her. 6 months of chemo means that my mother, who is already very frail and in poor health and has no excess weight to lose, will be enduring some of the worst torture that the medical profession doles out to patients. I've been working in healthcare for over a decade now. And the worst thing that I have seen is chemo and what it does to patients, what it does to their quality of life, and so often with very little return on quantity of life. And I know, based on her health and based on my experience, based on prognosis for her diagnosis, that she will likely not survive this, but she will survive it long enough to waste away into nothing. And she will do it without me. Because 2 years ago, I cut my dad off completely. I have not spoken to him in 2 years. If you've been following the podcast and listening to other episodes, you know why. And she has unequivocally stood by him. She has berated, shamed, and fought with me and my sisters over our lack of relationship with him, and stood by him despite everything he has done to us and to her. And so now she is left alone with an abusive man who she has chosen to stay with despite many offers and resources to get her away from him. She thinks it is her duty as a Christian to stay with him because she made a promise. I know I will never get closure with her, whether it is a peaceful reconciliation or the realization that she never cared about me. I will have to spend the rest of my life wondering, because I'm not going to get the opportunity. All of that going on has brought up so many feelings and so many memories. And it's weird the way the brain works. I was sitting at my home trying to breathe away the chest pain that I was experiencing from all the stress that has been going on in my life. And as I was taking deep breaths, my brain went back to memories of my CNA training and the things that I learned about deep breathing and about how the respiratory system works from a very high level, because I was a CNA. I wasn't a nurse. I wasn't a doctor. It was very high level. And they gave some tips for how to help patients with respiratory issues or stress issues and what deep breathing does for the lungs and for the nervous system. And shortly after I received that training, I took a trip with my mom and some other family members, and we had been driving for hours in the car. And I remember thinking, well, I've been doing some really shallow breathing, and we've been sitting for a long time, and I remember what I learned about the alveoli, the little pockets in your lungs that exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide, and they tend to kind of collapse when you're doing shallow breathing and when you're sedentary for a while. And I was driving, and it was late, and I was very tired, and I thought, well, a way to keep myself awake and a way to kind of calm myself down from all this stress and help my body, I can just do some deep breathing. And everyone was pretty much asleep or almost asleep, and so I was driving, and it was dark. It was about 10:30 at night, and I was just doing the deep breathing techniques that I had learned. And my mom said, "What is wrong with you?" in that tone. I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Why are you breathing like that? I'm tired of your attitude. Why are you always with the attitude? You can't ever just be calm. You can't ever just be happy. You've always got to have an attitude about everything. Do you want me to drive?" And I said, "I don't know what you mean." She said, "I can hear you breathing." And I tried to explain to her what I was doing and why I was doing it. And she said that I needed to stop because she didn't want to hear it. And it was very, very upsetting to me at the time, and it was very hurtful. And looking back, it's still very hurtful. But it's almost comical in a traumatic kind of way. I got in trouble for breathing wrong. It's really hard for me to reconcile in my head my relationship with my mother, because in most abusive homes, even if both parents are abusive, children will latch on to one parent as the safe one, and it's usually the one who is less volatile. My mother was every bit as abusive as my dad, just in different ways. Her abuse was primarily emotional. And I didn't see it at the time because she didn't hit me. Well, she didn't hit me as much as he did. And I think that is how I've justified for so long having a better relationship with her than him. Because that's what we do, isn't it? As a society, we decide that emotional abuse isn't real abuse. It's not as bad. It only completely destroys your entire psyche. It's not like they physically harmed you. And we have decided as a society that physical harm is the only real harm. Emotional and psychological harm doesn't count. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. We're taught this from the earliest age. And it's a lie. It's not true. Words do hurt. And words get into your brain and into your soul and into your heart. And they become you. They become your inner voice. There is a little girl who I love dearly, who is a big part of my life right now, and she has a very toxic, emotionally abusive mother. And her mother's emotional abuse is not limited to her. It is to everyone in her life, including me. And dealing with that while also dealing with processing everything with my mother has compounded the entire situation. And it's a helpless feeling when you see someone, especially a child, being emotionally abused, because it's really hard to make a CPS report about emotional abuse. You know, they'll investigate physical or sexual abuse. and they can find evidence. But emotional abuse, it's a little trickier. And CPS has already been involved in this little girl's life multiple times. And they've come up empty on evidence. And it has become a mountain in my life and things that I have to deal with. Because every cell in my body, every thought in my head is screaming out to save this little girl. But I am powerless to do so in the current situation. And dealing with the emotional abuse from her mother toward me on top of it just compounds the entire situation. Emotional abuse is abuse, and I know I've done an episode on this before, but I think it bears repeating because so many people say, well, at least this, at least that, at least, yeah. No, it's abuse. And our society's decision as a whole to not count emotional abuse as real abuse has crippled generations to the point that anyone starting to call it out, it's labeled as a snowflake. Oh, you're just not tough enough. You just can't handle it. You get offended and hurt by words. Yeah, that's kind of what words are for. They are powerful. They create reality. There are very few people in the world who would hear their partner say, I love you once and be like, thanks, that's it. I'm good for the rest of my life. You need to hear it multiple times. And it's not an insecurity. It's a reassurance that should be given naturally. Words convey thoughts. Words convey attitudes. Words convey ideas. And if your idea is that I don't like you, fuck you, that is conveyed in words. Not always in those words, but in different ways. Sometimes I don't like you, fuck you sounds like I was here first. This isn't your house. Sometimes it sounds like you're not really married. The invalidation of your status as a person, of your relationship, of your place in life, in a home, it conveys more than just, I'm angry. Because angry words are calm thoughts. Just like they say, drunk words are sober thoughts. It's the same situation. When you're uninhibited, you say what you really mean. Whether you're drunk or angry. People don't say things flying off the handle that they don't mean. And if they do, if they really didn't mean it, they apologize for it. If you refuse to apologize for something you said in anger or drunk, you meant it. Plain and simple. And any kind of skirting around that or trying to make excuses for it is gaslighting, which is another form of emotional abuse. So what's the point of this? Why are we talking about this? Because so many people find themselves in emotionally abusive situations and try to make excuses for it. Oh, it's really not that bad. She didn't mean that. He didn't mean that. It wasn't like that. I'm being too sensitive. Or sometimes your partner invalidates you, or your family, or someone else in your life. I think you're being too sensitive. I don't understand why you feel that way. It's not really that bad. It's just words. I don't care what people say. I don't care what people think. And that becomes an invalidating voice in your head. And you start to feel like a crazy person and like you're overly sensitive. That you're just making a big deal out of nothing because no one else cares that you're being talked to like shit. You're the only one that does, so maybe you're the one that has the problem. But we have conditioned ourselves as a society to allow emotional abuse. And so when we see other people going through it, oftentimes our automatic reaction is invalidation of the victim. And when we do that, we become supporters of the abuser and enemies of the victim. So whether you're the one being abused or the one witnessing the abuse, it's something to pause and think about. How am I showing up for this? What are my intentions? What do I really want to convey? Am I acting out of love? Am I reacting in the way that I was trained to do? Does this make sense? Is this supporting the person that I love in the best way possible? Am I supporting myself in love in the best way possible? And it becomes this constant question and answer session because our society has set us up to continually allow emotional abuse. I was in a situation with my work where I had to make a report on a man touching me inappropriately. A man in a position of power touching me inappropriately. And one of the first questions I was asked was, "Are you sure it was intentional?" And I have been through enough of those meetings and those reports and those question and answer sessions that I actually had my feet solidly on the ground when it was asked. And I did not hesitate. I did not question myself. I did not allow that voice to get inside my head. And I answered, I absolutely know it was intentional. And I gave my reasoning for it. At another time, I would not have said that. But it still got in my head. I went home and I reflected on it and how this is the norm, especially if you're a woman, especially in reports of any sexual misconduct. Are you sure he meant it? And men do it in a certain way because they know. They know if they can play it off like an accident, you're going to sound like a crazy person. They know if they can play it off as unintentional, you're going to look like the one who's unhinged. It is a physical form of gaslighting. You're crazy. You're imagining things. That didn't really happen. And if it did, it wasn't intentional. Anyone who hurts you and their response is it wasn't intentional instead of I'm sorry, doesn't care that they are hurting you. Put that in your back pocket and keep it for the rest of your life. I will say it again. Anyone who hurts you, and when confronted, their response is not I'm sorry. It wasn't intentional. They don't care that they hurt you. And honestly, it probably was intentional. Because anyone who automatically reacts defensively when they are the ones who have caused the offense doesn't care what they are doing to you. You are so low on their level of priority, so low on their level of things I should care about. If their automatic response is, it wasn't intentional, it was. It was. It absolutely was. Even if the intention was, I'm only focused on me, I don't care about anybody else. The intention was your collateral damage. And I don't care how what I do affects you. It's absolutely intentional. Don't let anyone tell you it's not. So what do you do with this? You have someone emotionally abusive in your life. What do you do with that situation? The answer to abuse is always boundaries. And sometimes boundaries mean you don't get to be in my life. Sometimes boundaries mean limited access. And sometimes boundaries just mean, no, I'm not going to allow you to treat me this way. You will speak to me with respect, or you will not speak to me at all. Sometimes boundaries mean saying to someone directly, what you have said is not okay. If you are unwilling to apologize for it, we don't have anything more to say to one another. That is a boundary. Boundaries keep you safe. Boundaries say this is the requirements for being in my life, for interacting with me. If you cannot meet those, you don't get to be in my life or interact with me. Or, if you don't meet those, there are consequences to that. Maybe the consequences are limited interaction. Maybe the consequences are a withdrawal of support or whatever that you may be giving the person. But if boundaries don't have consequences, they're not a boundary. That's just you talking. Calling someone out about something without enforcing any consequences related to it is not setting a boundary. That is you puffing out your chest. That's treating someone like a child that you're trying to convince and teach how to be a good person. With an adult, boundaries, even with children, but especially with adults, boundaries require consequences. You can't just tell someone this is the expectation without any follow through. If they don't meet the expectation, then what? Boundaries are an if then. If you treat me with kindness and respect, then we will have a good relationship. If you talk to me like I'm garbage, then we will have nothing more to say to each other. Boundaries without consequences are not boundaries. Sometimes people think of boundaries as walls like around a fort. Boundaries are an electric fence. If you try to cross them, there are consequences. That is what a boundary is, and if you don't know how to set that, I suggest you learn how. Because boundaries are absolutely necessary to be a healthy adult and have healthy relationships. And setting boundaries is really hard. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done, especially setting boundaries with people you love, especially setting boundaries with people you love who really don't love you back, who pretend to love you back, but actually are just manipulating you and emotionally abusing you. Those are the hardest relationships to set boundaries with, because you know, if you start setting boundaries, the relationship is pretty much over, because they're only in your life as long as they can use you. And if you're stopping the abuse, if you're not allowing them to use you, then they have no more use for you. And knowing that, admitting that, is one of the hardest things to admit. It's one of the most painful things to admit, because no one wants to look at someone they love and say, you really don't love me. You should. By all accounts with our relationship, you absolutely should love me, but you don't. You are using me, you are manipulating me, you are emotionally abusing me, and if I put a stop to all of that, we're not going to have a relationship anymore, because you actually do not care about me. You only have me in your life as a supply for your emotional needs that you don't know how to meet yourself, that you just suck out of everyone else, giving absolutely nothing back. Admitting that is heartbreaking. It is gut-wrenching. It is soul-tearing. It's one of the worst things I've ever put myself through. But I don't regret it. I regret not having a relationship with my mom, because we really don't have a relationship now. We don't. And it hurts. But that was her choice. She made the choice to not have a relationship with me. She made the choice to not love me. And I made the choice to not allow that. I made the choice to say I deserve better. I deserve to be loved. I deserve loving relationships. And I don't have to put up with being treated like I'm not worthy of love. Like loving me is a charity case. So if you're a person who is trying to figure out how to set boundaries, the best advice I can give you is go to therapy. The second best advice I can give you, because I know if you, like me, live in America and know how horrible our healthcare system is, and especially our mental health care system, and how hard it is to get access to the help that you need, the second best advice I can give you is to start a journaling practice and to surround yourself with people who do love you. Be intentional with your connections that you make. Find the people who love you, the people who support you, because I never could have broken away and set the boundaries that I did with my parents if I had not had people supporting me and loving me along the way, because for a very long time I did not believe that I was worthy of love. How can you? You grow up with parents who don't love you. Why would you believe you deserve love? No one can grow up as a child with parents who don't love them and grow into an adult who believes they deserve love. It's impossible to do so. Your parents teach you what your relationships are supposed to be like, what love is supposed to look like, and if they teach you that you're an inconvenience, that you're just there at their disposal, that your existence is a bother to them, you will never learn that you deserve love. So if you are one of those people, find people in your life as an adult who are the antithesis to that. The antidote. The opposite swing of the pendulum. Change the direction, change the narrative. You are worthy and deserving of love, which means you are worthy and deserving to set boundaries in your life, to have people who love you and support you. And you are worthy of cutting out the people who don't. You deserve that. And you are the one who decides what connections you have. Good or bad, you decide what you allow into your life. And no one can guilt you or shame you into allowing anything you don't want. This episode was kind of all over the place, and I apologize. I am in the middle of a dumpster fire and just trying to find oxygen to breathe, but I hope that in the middle of that this reaches the people who need it, that it is helpful for whoever hears it. And if it was helpful for you, I hope that you will follow the podcast if you weren't already. I hope that you will follow us on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram. You can listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on pretty much every platform at this point. I hope to have an episode up next week. I usually post on Saturdays at 6 a.m. And I am hoping that I can get back to that again very soon. But please join us on the next podcast as we both continue to work on our mosaic in progress.